Hello, friends. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Grandmaster RB Ramesh from India, Chess Gurukul. So, in today's session, I'll be working on some bishop versus knight endgames. And bishop versus knight endgames are really interesting. And it is from these endgames, such endgames, we can learn the value of bishop and the value of knights. Okay, just a minute. So, I'll load the first position. Yeah, hello, Zoki. Welcome. Hello, Magadido. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. So before we go into the session, today there is a plan to do a live streaming with International Master Attila Turzo from Hungary. And for some reason, he wasn't able to join us today. So we will know what went wrong later. But today we will look at a different topic. We had seen about rook and pawn ending in the last two sessions. So today I thought we will take a new topic, which is bishop versus knight, where the side with the bishop is superior to knight. So before we get into it, can you all hear me clearly? Yo, hello, Surya, Arjun, Zuki, Magadido. Is my audio clear? Any static issues? Yes? Is the audio clear? Okay, yeah, thank you very much. So let's begin the session. So today, as I said, it is about bishop versus knight, which means we will be seeing positions where the bishop is superior to the knight. And in some positions, it will be the other way. The knight will be superior to the bishop. And if you see, there are some players who have clear preferences to which piece they prefer, bishop or a knight. Can you name a person, a top grandmaster, a former world champion, who preferred bishops over knight? He has mentioned it in many interviews. A former world champion who clearly had a preference for bishop over knight. Can you name anyone like that? Fisher. Yeah, Jinan. Very good. Fantastic. So it's Bobby Fischer. He preferred bishops to knights. That does not mean he did not know how to. Okay. 1 minute, guys. We have Attila joining us. So just give me a minute. So he was supposed to join much earlier, but there were some issues, it seems. I'm sorry about that. Hello, International Master Attila.
Hello. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. So can we go to the session? I have already gone live.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's actually what's the time at you? Because maybe I just miscalculated the time. I think.
Yeah, I guess
Is
so.
it like
It's
that?
10:30 in India now. It's 10:30 in India. So probably 1 hour you miscalculated. Probably it's 4.5 hours, not 3.5 hours.
Uh,
Probably the
really?
time. Yeah, probably. Not an issue.
Oh my
I'll,
God!
I'll,
So yeah, we can. Oh, let me look like this is now. Yeah. Oh my God! I was thinking 3.5 hours the different, not 4.5. Oh my
just a
God!
moment.
I'm
I'll add you to the
very
OBS.
sorry.
No problem.
So yeah, should we do things?
Yeah, I will add your video as well. Just a moment, please. So hello viewers. Just a moment. I'm adding him to the OBS and then we'll be fine.
I can hear you now. That's fine. Will we use like a chess.com board, or I don't know how? Where should I go?
Just a moment. Chess.com.
Maybe we
moment,
should
please.
add each other as a friend, I think, so you can invite me to the board.
Yeah, just a moment, please. One moment, please. So I'm trying to add you to the OBS, but I'm getting
Okay.
some arrows from your side, not the video. One moment. Yeah.
Each other. On the internet if I need.
Yeah. So I have added you on OBS.
Okay.
So can I have your chess.com ID, please?
It's my name, Attila Turzo in one word. I don't know if I can send like a link or where. Do we have like a way also to share here? Ah, yeah, there's the chat. So
On Zoom
maybe I
chat.
can send it in the chat.
So can you please type it in the chat screen?
Yeah, yeah. One moment, I will.
Okay. So I've sent an invite to you on chess.com, Attila. Have you received it? You need to come to live chess on chess.com.
Yeah, yeah. One moment, I am on live chat. Mhm.
So my handle is Talaiva. So I have typed my handle on Zoom chat. Hello, friends. Sorry for the delay.
Sorry for the delay. It's I missed the time difference.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm sorry again. So in the chat, let me look it.
In Zoom chat, I have sent my.
Okay, Talaiva. Okay, okay, and okay, I'm on the live chat. Did you send me an invitation there,
Yes,
or
I did.
like?
I
I
sent
think
you
you
a.
should add me as a friend first. I think on chat.com. So then I will be in that list when you are added me as a friend first.
So can you please send me a friend request for this ID?
Yeah, yeah, okay. Yeah, let me send.
Yeah, I have sent a friend request. Yeah.
Yeah, I accepted it. None. Okay, yeah. Now you can add me.
But I don't see you on live chess. Probably you need to come to live chess.
I am, but let me refresh me because now we.
Yeah, I can see. Yeah, I sent
Yeah,
an invite.
yeah, I got it. Wonderful.
Yeah. So, hello, friends. We have International Master Attila Turzo joining us. So it's a great honor, Attila, to have you in our channel, in our stream.
It's
So
my honor to be able to be here. It's my dream. So thank you very much for making it possible.
yeah, so the admiration is mutual. So thank you very much. So before we begin the session, I hope the audio is clear from both our ends. Can you please mention us in the chat how the audio is from both our ends?
I can hear you perfectly.
Yeah. So Attila, we are live in my stream. So yeah, audio is good. So we can begin the session. So I wanted to ask you a few questions before we begin. Can you please share with our audience about your chess journey, like for how long you have been playing chess and how it all started?
Yeah. So what I remember, I started around when I was 6 or 7 years old.
Mm-hmm.
My father-in-law was teaching me chess. And then when I was first grader in school, we had an after-school program where the teacher invited me to go to the local chess club in my city. It was actually in Kecskemét. In that time, that was a city where chess life was very, very active. So that it was not the capital; it's another city, but it was very active. A lot of good players played there. It was in the national league played. So I was very fortunate to live in that city. And yeah, in the weekends, actually, I played with my grandfather until I started to win against him. So like I was maybe like 10 years old then
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately we finished to play each other. But so I had like 2 sessions every week in that time, two-hour sessions in the club, and I played a lot of tournaments, junior tournaments. So until I was like 20 years old, I was most of the time like in the best 3 or 5 in Hungary in my age group.
Mm-hmm.
My best result, I was Hungarian junior champion when I was 20. I became an international master at the age of 18. So that time, that was kind of a good thing. It was 24 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
so pretty long time ago. And actually, after that, I moved to another city, and there I was asked to start to teach kids. So I started to teach children, and soon I started to teach online, like in 3 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then I stopped really playing. I played just a few tournaments here and there, and I was concentrating on teaching. And time to time, I was thinking maybe I should go for the grandmaster title, or I should, because I was thinking it's some kind of like absurd to stop playing on the top, kind of like very young age, looks like a talented junior, and then just stop playing when making the international master title. But yeah, so I was very interested in spirituality, so I was also maybe, yeah, somehow first I was thinking, okay, like why to fight anymore? Just to kind of like Buddhist ideas I got into. So like
Mm-hmm.
go to the nirvana instead of making some fights. But then somehow I overcome those things, and I realized, okay, I just cannot finish my life without giving my best as a chess player also. So this I was thinking maybe my last attempt, because I will be like 42 now, so it's kind of late to
So
to
I'm
make.
44 myself, so I can understand what you're going through.
But I feel kind of young, and also I am kind of active. I am doing sports most of the days. I also meditate. So I am also I live a very healthy lifestyle.
Mm-hmm.
So I was thinking this would be also as a good experience if really can make something different than usually. Nowadays the kid, like the grandmasters are the kids like when they are like 14 or 13 years old. So
Yeah.
it's very different from the that's on the age. But I was thinking maybe it's possible, because yeah, I'm living kind of a little bit maybe higher standards than normal. So I try to be more healthy, more energy. So maybe I can still try. And I looked also some players like Korchnoi or Swisslov, who still at a very high age they were super strong. Or even Anand, he's 50 and
Yeah.
still like in the best 10. So I was thinking
Mm-hmm.
maybe if they can do at that age, maybe like it's possible to still improve and be really good.
Yeah,
Because
definitely.
actually the thing was like I was kind of really talented and I was kind of lazy.
Hmm.
So I did not really study much. This is how I became like just played a lot in the
Okay.
last years with
So more
my
of
coach.
a more talent. You came up mainly because of your talent and also practical experience rather than working systematically.
Yeah. That was and always when I started to work a little bit, I
Hmm.
just played much better. Even like actually last year started the journey, in
Hmm.
the beginning of last year. But what happened? We decided to move together with my father and mother-in-law, so we need to sell their house, then our apartment, and we need to buy a new house.
Hmm.
And that was the program for the last year. We actually now we settled in a new place. I made also the paintings and all kind of stuff. But like last year, I started to do this little program for myself. I did like 1 and sometimes 2 hours tactics for 1.5 months in January and February. And then first time in my life, I was able to play with Hikaru Nakamura, and I beat him
Wow.
in a blitz game.
Hmm.
And I played with MLV also game, and there also I got winning positions. So this I just started to play much stronger, and then suddenly I stopped doing things because I was concentrating on the family issues and the house issue. And then so that was some like sign that was really surprised me how strong I started to play in blitz. It was only in blitz games, so I'm not sure if this will be in classical chess also, but I had like it was very positive for me when I started to do these tactics because my big weakness was always in chess the tactics calculation. Because
Hmm.
when I was
Yeah, I was
kind
trying
of
to get to that in my next question. So first, I wanted to learn about your background, and to the viewers today, what we are trying to do is like Mr. Attila, he had approached me to work together, and we thought it would be interesting if we can train online. So we can also stream the training program, so you can all uh, get inspired and also learn in the process how uh, strong international masters and grandmasters they work together. So I think it will be very interesting learning experience for all of us. So that's what we are trying to do today. Today we are going to have a live session with International Master Attila from Hungary. He is more popular on Twitch than me. I'm very new here. He has been here for quite some time. So, and later, I believe Mr. Attila will be sharing his views, his learning in his own channel as well. So, I would strongly recommend everyone to watch that as well. So, so basically, this is going to be a live class or a live session where your coach and student are teaching. I don't want to put it that way, but I hope that is what we are looking for here, right, Mr. Attila?
yeah
You're fine with that? Yeah,
yeah absolutely. I am very happy. I am also very excited about the experience.
yeah. Thank you very much. So, uh, I have my next question is like, what would you consider your strengths in chess to be? Where you feel you really at home, where you feel comfortable, happy to play some certain positions? What will be such areas in your case?
Yeah, this is a big question, good question, because my personality is kind of has some specialty because I don't know if you are about sometimes some astrology.
Hmm.
So there are like two signs I have like which is sometimes it's an
Cusp.
opposite together.
Okay.
So this is the Western astrology. So I don't know about the Eastern much. Like
Hmm.
maybe probably the Indian astrology is a little bit different. But so the thing is like sometimes I feel like I am good in tactics and these very complicated positions, but
Hmm.
looks like when intuition needed, then I am kind of can feel and find some good moves, but not because I am good in calculation, but I feel like in calculation I am kind of weak.
Hmm.
But the
But you can
intuition,
intuitively find your way. You can
yeah,
intuitively find
yeah,
the correct direction. But when you try to
Yeah,
sit and work out the variation, sometimes you make mistakes.
yeah, and then also in kind of positions I am good when my king is safe
Hmm.
and I can slowly improve the position and kind of like there is no direct fight, but find the
A
best
long,
square
a long-term
for my
game,
pieces.
long-term game, where there are no immediate threats. Game is kind of quiet. Okay, fine.
Yeah, but but also it's interesting how things develop by time because I'm not sure if that happened because I just became too much fear about the open positions, so I started to play close positions,
Hmm.
and that kind of became good because when I was younger, I played kind of a lot of very
More
active
dynamic
chess,
positions.
and there even I was always fearful. Like example against the Sveshnikov Sicilian with white. I played again, I played e4 when I was young, and and also against the dragon. Always I was in fear when I was playing I will lose, but I had very very high score, like maybe 80% again in those games. So I somehow always managed to survive and win the games or have like a good game. But I was always feel okay. I will just miscalculate something or I will. But so I'm not sure what the reality and what my fears are different or the same.
Okay, so it is possible that with age, you are probably feeling less comfortable in complex positions. Maybe subconsciously you are trying to reach safer positions, so the possibilities of making mistakes is less. Am I
Yeah,
understanding it right? It could be. Yeah.
yeah. But that's I'm not sure if I really need to play like these quiet positions or if I make like proper calculation training, which I never did in my life.
Mm.
Then maybe I would just that would be maybe then to play the things because then my intuition is quite good and that's a big question which I never really answered or never made like some experiences what direction to go with.
Okay. So now I have, what I understand from your explanation is when you were, throughout your career, you were not a very hardworking type, but very talented. And as a result, in most positions, you were able to come up with, intuitively, you were able to find the correct direction. You could sense the position well. You could come up with the best moves in many cases. But it was mainly because of your talent and intuition and less because of your training. And the other
Abs-
thing I understood is, but I can also understand that this is the impression you have about yourself. And sometimes it is you're in the right direction, but sometimes it is possible that maybe
that's
our emotions they make us feel this way. So sometimes it is possible that you might be extremely good in calculation, but because of your fear of making mistake, maybe you are avoiding it. That is also possible. So probably when we start training, we could try to identify that. And the other thing so to summarize, intuitive, less concrete, that is less relying on calculation, more of intuition, relying more on talent, less on proper work. And you also took some break from being an active player. You are more into training other players. So the practical skills, in my own case, I stopped playing in 2008, and since then I have played only maybe 2 or 3 tournaments in the last 12 years. And as a result, I can see my calculation skills have suffered a bit. I'm still extremely alert for tactical possibilities. I can find the ideas very quickly, but when it comes to actually working out the details, I feel it's very much possible that I will miss some moves here or there. That likelihood is much more. So I can relate to what you are going through. Now, the other question is like, what is your ambition going forward? What do you think you are capable of achieving? And you already mentioned a place like Kochanai, how he achieved at a later stage in his life. So, what do you think is possible in your case?
I would. Mm, yeah, I'm sure at least achieving the grandmaster title. I think that's possible. So
Hmm.
like playing like a 2600 level to
Yeah, can
make
you
that.
please share to the viewers like your current rating?
My current rating is 2300. Actually, I went down from my top rating was 24, like 15, maybe like 24 years ago. So
Okay.
so
So
it's
have you been
yeah, it's a
participating in
kind of
competitions recently? I'm sorry. Have you been participating in competitions recently?
yeah. Actually, there was just one tournament last. I think it's 3 weeks ago. I played in the tournament,
Mm.
and that was interesting because there I actually played. There I won against the best player of my life. I won against a 20+5 grandmaster.
Mm.
And also, I played the draw against a very talented Indian junior. I'm sure you know him. Also nearly 25,000 now. He made like two grandmaster norms in Hungary, I think, like in this year in
Mm.
October. And
Yeah, Leon Mendonca.
yeah, against
Okay.
him. Yeah.
Yeah, fine.
So that was interesting because I started like 5 points out of 7 games, making like this against two guys also playing the two strongest tournaments of the players, and then I lost the last 4 games, and in that last 4 games I had winning positions in like in 3 games, but I made one move blunders.
Mm-hmm. And why
So
was that
I
happening?
played pretty strong actually. But I was surprised also how strong I was playing.
But you mentioned like you lost in the last 4 games, and it was all because of one more blunders. Did you
I
find out
actually time
why that
pressure.
happened? Time
The
pressure.
situation was I was in time pressure in those 3 games, and in the time pressure I made those blunders.
Okay. So let me note down the critical points what we have identified, and I'll be sharing this with the audience as well. So
Mhm.
one is intuitive, then I would say less of working, more intuitive and less hard work, and avoiding calculations or avoiding complex positions, right? That is and then time trouble issue.
Yeah,
And in time trouble, you're making some calculation mistakes, right? Some blunders are happening.
yeah.
Okay, so has the time trouble problem been there always, or it's only recently happening?
Um, actually, this I think it was most of the time. Not always. Sometimes, I tried to concentrate on removing it, then it was better. I can, just remember back because it's really, I played, time to time tournaments like in this last 24 years,
Mhm.
but really not, maybe once or twice a year I played in a tournament, so that I would not say really serious. But time is a challenge for me in life. So I would say, if I would say yes or no, I would say, because that's always also a challenge. I am try to work now how to use my time in priorities in life. So that's a real challenge. So if I can maybe solve it in chess, that I would be a very big positive effect on my other areas of
Okay.
life also.
So generally the time trouble issue, it is less to do with chess and more to do with the psychology of the player. And yeah,
To
so we
make
will.
decisions, for me, it's hard to make. Sometimes it's hard to make decisions. I think that's just generally in life also hard to make decisions, because then there are like two positions which looks around the same. Many times I just take too much time. I don't know. I just said maybe I need to just flip a coin, because I have no more things to decide how to decide when.
Yeah, so decision making is generally the main reason, like indecisiveness. That is most likely the cause for getting into time trouble for most players. Okay, so now the thing is, yeah, I got some idea about you, but basically, I would like to see for myself how you handle different types of positions. But before we get to the that part, uh, I would like to ask you, like, how, uh, what you think whether you are in the right direction to becoming a grandmaster, because you said like you'd be very happy to become a GM. That's your lifetime ambition. And do you think you are going in the right direction with your current work ethics, with the current mental setup you have, or how optimistic are you to becoming a grandmaster? Do you think you are going in the right direction?
I think this tournament actually made me the last decision. I think, and it started to make to the right direction. Actually, losing these last four games, I think this was kind of very good for me because that was the last point when I said, okay, I need to change things, and I really need to dedicate time for preparation and to make. Sometimes it looks like when we are going to the lowest on the things, then you start to go up. Because so then I started to do like now every day, like at least 1 hour or 2 hours of puzzles. I started to do like in the last 3 weeks. So, and I start to look like also results. I start to play better. I think I just played this title Tuesdays tournaments where
Hmm.
I'm able to play some stronger players. So there I feel, but so I'm optimistic. Yeah, it still need to organize what else to do or how to do, or which. This is why also that was a big step to asking you to be my coach, because before I was always thinking I will do it at my kind of myself, but then I realized it's really need it's a teamwork or need help, because it's when I became an international master also I had a coach, and and I realized it's probably that's also in all from all directions is really necessary to have some support, even some psychological support, or it's a very big plus. And this was also, I think, a big step, and this also shows my dedication. I signed up in the program which you are this
Coaches training.
Prochess training league.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I think also really I showed that I will be dedicated to also go that and like playing training games with strong players. So I am a very optimistic actually.
Okay, that's good to know. Generally, like what happens is like when players they go through some tough times in terms of results, and over a period of time they are not achieving the things they hoped they would be able to achieve. It's very much possible that we can become pessimistic about our chances. But I'm happy to see that you are very optimistic. That makes there are some changes that we need to make in ourselves, how we think, our work ethics, and so on. So it's more possible if we are optimistic about that. Yeah. So now there are in my view there are three approaches whenever we feel we have stagnated at some point, and even in cases where we are not stagnant but we are continuously making progress. There are three approaches to consider. One is like a general approach, which is most popular with most coaches, is they try to identify some so-called weaknesses in the students play, and by taking the approach like if we can eliminate those weaknesses in the students game, then immediately the results should get better. It is something like, imagine a bucket with, let us say, three holes in the bucket, and then we try to fill the bucket with water, and how much ever water we pour into the bucket, the holes do their job, right? So the water keeps leaking and the bucket is never full. So
Yeah,
so what we try to do, if we just plug those three holes, then the water I pour into the bucket, it is possible to fill the bucket, right? Something like this. So we think like, apart from these three holes, everything else is perfect. And once these three holes are plugged in, then the bucket will be doing its job. So it's assuming we have only few weaknesses, and then if we can sort out those few weaknesses, then our career will go in a positive direction. So this is the common approach, I would say. Most coaches and most parents, most players, they prefer. So like quickly identify the weakness, get rid of it, and I am all set to go in the right direction. The graph will start going up. But I don't entirely agree with this approach, because I feel the human mind is more complex. We don't make like only three mistakes or two mistakes and everything else perfect. So sometimes it's like it's fluctuating most of the time. There are obviously there will be some strength areas, and there will also be some areas where we are not doing things properly. That could be naturally it's happening. For example, some players, they or not feeling comfortable in certain type of positions. It could be any type of position, depends on the individual. So I would feel like this is one of the possible approaches. We can try to identify where you are not doing well, and then trying to uh, set it right so that those weak areas are eliminated. This is one approach. The second approach is acquiring new strengths. So we can try to add new strengths to our arsenal. So let us say my endgame skills currently are not good or has not been good in the past and present, and I'll start working more on endgames. So this way I become good in endgame. So here I am not eliminating my weakness, but I'm adding some strength to my arsenal. So this is the second approach where we try to learn new things, and by learning those new things, we hope our results will get better. Yeah, hello everyone, welcome. So in today's session, we are going to uh, train together with International Master Attila Turzo from Hungary. He is 42 years old, and his peak rating was around 2450. And currently, it is around 2300. And he hopes to become a grandmaster in the future. And we are trying to work together towards that ambition. And we thought it will be an interesting idea to do this training session live. So basically, this is what we are trying to do here. And Mr. Attila will also be streaming in his channel later. You can please follow his channel, and he has been here for a long time than me, for sure. And he will be explaining what he has been learning in this channel, in these sessions. So I would encourage all of you to follow that as well. And I have already typed in the chat like my initial assessment of Mr. Attila's strengths and weaknesses. As of now, I'll just copy paste it again. So he has been more of an intuitive player rather than a concrete player. Now this is there are many types of players, and let me quickly get a Word document. Please hold on. So there are different types of decisions as players we make. One moment. Please hold on. One moment, please. Okay, so there are different types of decisions we have to make in our games. Sometimes the decisions are more intuitive, where our feelings give us the direction. This is the move I need to play, something like this. And sometimes we have to calculate, use brute force, see some concrete variations, and then try to play the moves which come as the outcome of our resulting calculation. This is another way. Sometimes we take decisions based on our knowledge, the pattern recognition. I have seen similar positions before, so I think this is the best move in the position. So we are relying in our past knowledge, the patterns we have seen, our experience, and that guides us to take decisions. And sometimes our knowledge of chess principles, they say like, okay, in this type of position, I should exchange these type of pieces. Or let's say my opponent is attacking me prematurely on the flank, so I should try to open the center. So here you see we are applying our knowledge of understanding of the principles and the position and take decisions. So there are different types of decisions, and we should not rely only on one type of decision making skill in all types of position. So we have to ideally use different methodologies to take decisions. And the other thing is like, Mr. Attila, I would like to ask you, like, are you willing to make the necessary changes? Because you're trying to become a grandmaster, and which was not possible till now, for probably for some reasons, right? Maybe we have been making some incorrect choices in chess, or maybe our work ethics are not as it should be. So, are you willing to make those changes? Because this is also very necessary. Because I strongly believe actual learning happens only when we are willing to come out of our comfort zone and trying to make some necessary changes in ourselves.
Yeah.
So, how
Yes, I
likely
think
you are to make those changes?
absolutely. Yeah, I think like, it's like all of nothing now. I think this is my last chance, so I am absolutely willing to make the things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's fantastic. Yeah, that's very nice to know. So, earlier I was saying there are three paths to improvement. One is try to identify the areas where we are not so good. So, some players call it a weakness. And even this term, I'm very not very comfortable using the term weakness. For example, uh, let us say when I was young, I was very good in attacking positions, complex positions. I preferred complex positions than to end games. And I also was very good in remembering opening theory. My memory, as far as remembering opening theory, uh, exact the move orders was very good. I was very happy with it. And it gave me a lot of wins because I could remember openings better than my opponents. Back then, theoretical knowledge was not considered very important as it is now. So no one was paying much attention to opening theory, but since young age, I was giving a lot of importance to it. I was quite good at it. But as a result, what happened? I felt my endgame skills was not good. And when I was young, one international master, Mr. Murugan, he told me like I am good in complex positions. My endgame skills are, my attacking skills are good. My opening preparation is good, but my endgame skills and positional understanding was not my strength. I need to get a lot better in those areas. And initially, I felt insulted because I had beaten that player sometimes. But when I actually thought about it, it made a lot of sense. I'm extremely thankful to him for pointing out my weaknesses and uh, rearranging my priorities at a young age itself. So then I thought, okay, so maybe I'm just born this way. I'm born to be a good attacking player. I'm not probably born to be a good positional player or a good in endgame. So this is how it has to be. Maybe I should not try to tamper it too much. But I also had this urge to know, is it really so? Am I like kind of born to be a, a bad positional player and a bad end game player? So I was curious about this as well, and I was not willing to accept that. Okay, I can be bad at some certain things all my life in chess. So I became curious. So I started um, looking at Anatoly Karpov's games when I was young, and initially, I was very skeptical. I thought most of his moves were too slow, not aggressive enough. He's not taking risk. So probably he's scared of taking risk. That's why he is playing the way he was playing. But then I asked myself, but if that is the case, then why Gary Kasparov was having such a hard time trying to beat Karpov, right? They played so many World Championship matches, and it was not possible for Kasparov to kind of dominate him throughout. The wins were happening, but it was not very close to each other. So obviously he had something going in his favor, and probably I'm reading everything incorrectly. So once I was willing to accept that the fault is probably it at my end, I started trying to see his games and learn from that. And in the process, I one thing I realized, many of his moves made sense to me, but some of his moves didn't really. Even if I try as hard as I can, it still did not make any sense to me at all. So I understood that these are the areas or these are the type of positions where I have to make some changes in my chess understanding. The more I started studying, then I took a notebook. I tried to write down his thinking process or the way I looked at it. And that work which I did when I was young, it really helped me a lot. And then it gave me confidence that maybe I'm not weak in positional play or end games. If I work in the right way, I can actually learn these areas. So from then, my concept of weaknesses has changed drastically. So I can see many players, upcoming players, what they do. They simply accept that in some areas they are weak, in some areas they are good, and they can do nothing about in the areas where they consider themselves to be weak. So they kind of lose hope and they don't try hard enough to get better in these areas where they could actually make progress. So I would say I would like to consider the areas where we are not good. I wouldn't want to consider them to be our weak areas. Instead, I would say I would like to consider them as our lack of strength. Instead of calling it a weakness, we can probably call it lack of strength. It means we can become stronger in those areas. There is still hope. This is the way I would like to see. And so there are, like I said, there are three approaches to improvement. One is eliminating our weak areas or areas where we don't have strength. The second area I would say acquiring new strengths. And the third is third approach. This is also quite common. Many players do apart from eliminating the weak areas is they try to um, build on the existing strength. For example, if they are good in attacking positions, they keep working more and more on attacking positions and they want to become super strong in attack. And as a result, they are hoping I can win more games because I am extremely strong in one area. So these are the three approaches I would say. One, identify weakness and eliminate. Two, acquiring new strengths, which was where we were not good earlier. The third approach I would say is building on our existing strength. I'm already good in some area. I want to become super strong in that area. So I would suggest all the three approaches. There has to be a balance. And whenever we are in good form, I would say it also it's largely dependent on the current form of the player. I would say if the player is in good form, then his mind is more receptive to changes. So I can easily make some changes because I feel good about myself. I'm more confident about my skills. So when a player is in good form and in confident mood, I would say it's better to acquire new strengths. So try to, let us say, my endgame skills are not that good. I can work more on endgames, become good in endgame. So basically, I'm acquiring some new skills. But if I feel my current form is not good, I'm not in my best shape, my results are not good, I don't feel confident about my current state of mind, then instead of acquiring new skills with that negative frame of mind, I would say if we can identify one critical area, one critical mistake we are repeatedly making, try to become better in that one particular area or get rid of that one bad quality we have. I think that could have a very positive influence on our state of mind and as a result with the results as well. Now, uh, yeah, so maybe like we can start with this position on the screen. It is white to play. So we have a bishop versus knight. So you can take your time and give your views on this, Mr. Attila. You can take as much time as you want. So in the meantime, I can chat with the audience.
Okay, so what's the question? The assessment of the position, or
White has, yeah, first thing is I am interested about the assessment. What do you think?
yeah, first what I recognize, like the f7 pawn is on the bishop color, so maybe that can be a target.
Mm-hmm.
Also, we have like a h and the g pawn against the g pawn, so maybe white can make like a passed pawn, which is kind of far away from the black king.
Mm-hmm.
So I would assess as a strength that. So those two things would be like a strength for white, that target on f7 and maybe a possible passed pawn on the
Pass on the
h5.
H file. Yeah. And the king is far away
And the
from
king
the
is
scene of
far
action.
away.
Yeah.
We have equal number of pawns, so that's equal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the queen said a3 pawn, and probably even the d5 pawn can be a weak, so maybe the knight can take it. But normally in the positions when there are pawns on both sides, then normally the bishop is better than the knight because the bishop can support his own pawn,
Mm-hmm.
plus at the same time sometimes stop the opponent's
Pass pawn. Yeah.
and pass pawn on the other side because
Mm-hmm.
it's a long range piece. So if I would need to say quick thing, I would say like white is better, but then should probably start the calculation part when it's if it's really good in real
Significant or
life.
not. Yeah. Fine. So yeah, on the assessment, you are absolutely right. All the features about the position you had mentioned are true. Like we have a white as a potential pass pawn on the H file. The F7 pawn is weak. So does white's a3 and d5 pawns are weak as well. But can white get something concrete? Now, in these type of positions, there are two ways to think. One is we can consider our position to have some long-term advantages, and then we don't try to do anything concrete. We just try to play a long game and then win eventually. So this is one approach that is possible. The other approach is more concrete. If we feel very strongly that my position is good, then maybe it makes sense to spend some more energy, extra effort, and try to find a concrete, clear way to increase our advantage, and if possible, maybe even win the game as a result. So here, what approach we take also defines a lot about us. Like if you are constantly avoiding concrete solutions and going on trying to play a long game on general terms, or we are trying to be very concrete in every position, that also defines a lot about us. So what would be your approach?
Actually, I nowadays I try to be more concrete because that's what I was working on
Mm.
recently to change that stuff. So yeah, I should I say like concrete variations also or
Yeah, you can.
so? Because first I just came in my one idea like the bishop f5 move because I was thinking if I can also stop the knight to coming to stop the h pawn. So if I can, because probably if it comes to knight e5, then it cannot actually come closer to my h pawn because the bishop controlling all the g6, g4, d7 square. So and the king is probably not in. It's still in the square of the pawn. Yeah, if he plays king c7, he can still catch the pawn. Okay, that's unfortunate. If he
Okay, so
because
initial reaction is bishop f5, isn't it?
yeah, I was thinking yeah to and then just to push the pawn because I forgot about the king because if just the knight fighting, I was thinking maybe okay, but yeah, I can play g4, but then I can go with the king to attack the g4 pawn.
So what would you say, like after bishop f5, black plays king c7? What would be, let's say, okay, so knight e5, let's say. What happens here?
95. Okay, I just cannot do h4 because knight f3 is okay now. That's a very concrete thing. So probably I really need to move the king to actually avoid the knight f3. Then maybe the original bishop f5 idea is also not the best because if I cannot push the pawn after the bishop f5 move, knight e5,
Mhm.
then maybe I
So
need to.
so the first thing is like you're considering bishop f5 and knight e5, right?
Yeah,
What I would suggest is like so I can see already one issue in your thinking process, that is, and this is also very common with most players. What happens is we look at a position and some move pops up in our head, and then we start going more deeper into that option, into that possibility, and then we start analyzing. But I'm sure you have heard about this candidate moves concept, Alexander
yeah,
Popov, all this. Yeah, you're
absolutely.
very familiar. So I think it is extremely important that once we see an interesting idea, we don't start going deep into that area right away. Instead, it makes sense to consider more possibilities. That way, we don't miss any good opportunities available to us. And also, it's very important once we have a list of possibilities, only then we start our analytical process. Not when in the process of making the list, we should not analyze. So now let us say if you like bishop f5 here for white, then I would suggest you should simply stop with bishop f5 and say, okay, so I have one decent move bishop f5 in this position. Now let me look if there are other interesting possibilities available. So this way, what happens? If there is some hard to find but interesting ideas, there is a good possible probability that we will catch them as well. So apart from bishop f5, do you feel some other moves are interesting?
Yeah, I was looking also like bishop g8 or bishop g6 even,
Mhm.
and pawn h4.
Yeah. So some of the other moves you considered were these three moves with the bishop and also the pawn move with h4,
Of
right?
course, the king move is always a consideration to try to go and help with the pawns. So
So
like
to
king e2 or
help
king
the
f2.
pawns, to help the pawns, you can also bring the king. So as you can see, like there are many possibilities. One is bishop g8, bishop g6, both trying to attack and win the pawn. The third option is bishop f5, trying to dominate the knight with the bishop, control all the major squares for the knight with bishop f5. So these three bishop moves are interesting. And the fourth option is to right away, why not create a pass pawn by playing h4. And the next possibility is uh, we can try to get the king up and then start doing all of these things. So now, how do you feel that you see so many moves are possible? Does it overwhelm you that, oh my God, I have so many possibilities to consider? So, where I should start? Can I analyze all of them properly? Will I be able to do it? Do you get those emotions, or you feel, okay, now my job is cut out, so let me start getting into it? How do you feel?
Yeah, I feel like it's especially if I am like in a tournament game and we are in the end game and maybe low on time to
Hmm.
how to approach this one is a little bit yeah, it's hard.
Tricky.
Which one we start with? It's I'm also yeah, I would think to what's the most direct maybe to cut off what to remove from the possibilities. I
Hmm.
would also think to
Yeah. So when we have more than one possibility in any position, it makes sense to start with the most forcing moves.
yeah
And forcing moves, it's a check capture threat. And I would also generally the understanding is check capture threat are considered to be the forcing moves. I would prefer to add pawn breaks as well into that list. So normally I say CCTP, it is check capture threat and pawn breaks. These are the forcing moves. So when we see moves like king e2 or bishop f5, these moves are not very forcing. But
yeah
bishop g8, moves like bishop g8, bishop g6, and h4, these three are more forcing than, say, the moves like bishop f5 or king e2. These are kind of quiet moves, isn't it? So I would suggest when we are seeing a move and get attracted by that move, we should immediately stop ourselves and say, okay, it's good. I have a decent move which I like very much. But before I start getting into this move, let me also quickly see if there are other similar better moves available. And if they are available, we don't analyze them immediately. We simply become aware that these possibilities are there. So we make a list. And once we have a list, the next important question is which move I should start analyzing from the list. So option A, option B, option C. This is very important. And how do we choose? Let us say I have option A, B, C. Now, it is possible, like I have seen some players when they analyze, let us say there are possibilities option A, B, and C. Now, the player likes option A. So he is trusting his intuition. He likes option A. He starts analyzing option A, but it is not very forcing. The analysis is not very forcing. So what he does, he starts spending more time analyzing option A, and let us say after 8 minutes, he is not able to come to a conclusion whether it is good or bad for him. It's very unclear, or there is nothing much forcing going on. So it's very difficult to calculate this. And as a result, he is like spending more time and is slowly getting into the mode where he is getting desperate because he is seeing some possibilities and he cannot conclude it is good or bad for him, and he's trying to make it work, and the time runs, and after some time he realizes he has spent a lot of time and without any concrete result to show for it, and that is when the panic sets in. We become more desperate and then we try to do something bad and it backfires. So let us say now after 8 minutes of thinking, he realizes his option A is not good for him or it is not clear. So then he goes to option B. Now let's say he analyzes option B for 3 minutes and he understands it is bad for him. So he rejects option B and then he goes to option C and then he sees within like 1 minute that he is simply winning. Now in this case, is it a matter of pure luck that he chose option C towards the end? Had he considered option C first, maybe he would have saved like 10 minutes or 12 minutes of his time. So is it a matter of pure luck that strong players, they every time they analyze the correct move first, or is there a process by which we can ensure this kind of inefficiency can be avoided? So I would say definitely yes. Now, when there are three possibilities like option A, B, and C, now when we start analyzing option A, the first question we should ask ourselves is option A the most forcing of the three options? So if the move is not very forcing, it does not make sense to start with analyzing that move because the moves are not forcing at all. We will be like groping our way in the dark. So it makes sense to start with moves which are very forcing because when we start analyzing the forcing moves first, we can prove one way or the other that it is working or it is not working. We can prove it and effectively you can do this very quickly. So I would say please consider analyzing the most forcing options first. And now the next question should be what if two options are forcing out of the three? One move is quiet, but two other moves are very forcing. What do I do in this case? Which move I choose first? Now here there is some suggestion. If you feel your position is good, for example, in this position, what will be our intuitive thinking? Is white trying to save the game in a bad position, or is white playing for a draw, or is white trying to play for a win? So we can feel intuitively that white is playing for a win here, right? We
Yes.
feel white is better and we're looking for a very positive outcome. So whenever you feel you're looking for a positive outcome, then it makes sense to analyze the moves which we think it is not correct for ourselves. So let us say we consider bishop g6, right? This is very tempting because we are attacking this pawn. So bishop g6, most likely he will play knight e5, which not only supports the pawn but also attacks the bishop. And in this
Yeah.
case, we have to again spend one more tempo with the bishop, one more move with the bishop to save the bishop, right? So we
Yeah.
are basically wasting some time in this process. So we can see we can eliminate bishop g6 quickly than let us say king e2 or bishop f5, right? Because after knight e5 we have to waste time with the bishop. So
Yeah.
it makes sense like if you feel the position is working, uh, you are looking for a positive outcome from the position, then start analyzing the moves which you think is not correct. You have some suspicion about the move, so analyze them first, quickly refute them, and prove to yourself they are not good. They are not giving you what you are looking for. And once you have quickly eliminated the moves which are not working in our favor, then we should finally go to the move which we feel is the most critical move in the position. So this way we can put all our time and energy on that critical move and we find some clever resource and make it work. But if, on the contrary, let us say we are trying to save the position from a slightly worse position, you are trying to make a draw. So you're not looking very hopefully at the position, then it makes sense to directly go to the move which we think is correct and try to make it work. If it works, then we don't have to analyze the other options at all. So this I would suggest. So let us, from the moves you had suggested, which are the most forcing moves? Bishop g6, bishop g8, bishop f5, king e2, h4. Five options we considered. So which you think is more forcing for white?
Bishop g8. I think that's. I was thinking
Bishop
that's.
g8 also looks very tempting. Okay, so the pawn is under attack. So I believe black will do this. And what would you like to do?
Yeah, and also again now like h4 is also maybe tempting to he
h4 is
can
tempting.
And
Okay,
then
so
we
I
can
think he will take, and we are simply trying to advance the pawn. So probably he will go knight of 3 check, isn't it?
knight f3,
And then
yeah,
probably we should go knight king f2,
king
and he
f2.
will take knight h4, and I guess you want to take the pawn, right?
Actually, there is bishop h7 for a moment. I have an idea. Bishop h7 to win the knight, maybe,
Yeah,
or
so to
force.
come king g3 and trap the knight. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, because
If
it.
I come here, um, we come, and the king is too far away.
Yeah,
Yeah, so this is winning. So we can conclude for bishop g8, knight e5, h4, gh4, gh4 is forced. Now knight of 3 is a mistake because if he plays knight of 3, the knight gets trapped in the corner of the board. So that's very good. So it means this is the moment where black has to consider some other moves because knight of 3 is a blundering the piece. So what can be done here if not knight of 3 check?
mm, maybe with the coming with the king to try to save the f7 pawn, and then with the knight stop the h pawn.
Yeah, so we can try to bring the king and defend the f pawn and use the knight to stop the pawn. So let's say we come here, and most likely we'll push the pawn. We come here, push. We come here, push, and finally we stop. Right?
Yeah.
And now probably he will try to get the king all the way. But even a move like king f8 will ensure after king s6 he won't have entry. Not only that, black also has a possibility to create a pass pawn on the queen side, isn't it?
Mm,
So
yeah,
this
it's
looks,
interesting because he's the king also, and his knight is kind of busy on the king side.
yeah, so even the bishop got stuck, and I have some counterplay on the queen side. So now you can stop the analysis and try to come to a conclusion and try to find out how good or bad the position is. Does white have a forcing win here? But intuitively, what do you feel? Have you taken the right approach, or you feel maybe there should be something else?
Somehow I feel maybe I need to use my king somehow because
The
it's
white king should have been used instead of going bishop g8 and h4.
maybe bishop g8. Maybe it's once. Maybe that's I don't know if that's the right thing first, but somehow need to include the king in
Yeah.
some
So
moment.
yeah. So now what happens is like what we are doing here is we are considering some possibilities. We are analyzing some variations, and they are not taking us to the conclusion we are looking for. It's not like we are finding the win immediately, right? That's not happening. So, whenever in some variation we get stuck where we are not convinced that this is the right approach, usually what happens is most players they persist with the same idea. So, for example, we started analyzing bishop g8, knight e5, h4, g takes, g takes, and in this variation we found a win for white, right? And then this gives us a lot of hope. It kind of tells us that we are in the right direction. Maybe I am going in the right direction. Maybe this is the win. And then we find this resource for the opponent and we try to win in a direct way. And unfortunately, this move comes and we are not able to win. So, in such a situation where we have had some success in one variation and in a move which we thought is the best direction, like bishop g8 we thought is the best direction, and in one variation we were managed to even find a win for white, and then we hit a wall where we are not winning. Usually what many players do, they become more persistent in this line and they try to somehow win in this position, either in the last position which we are seeing on the board or somewhere in the middle. But generally what I would suggest is whenever you feel you have hit a wall, you can spend another 1 minute or 2 minutes to try to make it work. But even after 1 or 2 minutes of consideration, if you are not able to find a forced win, then it is very important we go back all the way and we can tell ourselves, okay, BG8 is interesting. I'm getting some interesting positions where I'm not very sure whether I have a win or not. I need to spend more time. But before I do that, let me quickly consider my other options. And this is very important way to think, because what happens is, like, there is an analogy I usually tell my students, like, back maybe like 100 200 years before, when we did not have all these modern buildings everywhere, there were a lot of trees, jungles, and animals were living with the humans. And if you want to catch a monkey, so back in those days, what in India they used to do, they used to take a vessel which has this kind of a shape where the bottom is large but the mouth is short and there is a neck. So
Mhm.
small opening, neck, and then a large bottom. So this kind of a vessel, and they put some nuts, and the monkeys love nuts. So you leave some nuts in the vessel, and then what happens? You leave them alone. The monkeys come, they put the hand, and they want to take the nuts out, right? But when the hand went in, the hand is small, so the hand can go in. But once it grabs the nuts, now the hand cannot come out because the hand is full. So
Yeah,
what the monkey has to do to take the hand out, it just have to leave the nuts. When the
yeah,
hand becomes small, it can take the hand easily. But the monkey will hold on to it, and it will, all the while it will be struggling to take the hand out. So why I'm telling this is, many chess players, when we see some idea, we become like that monkey. We don't want to leave it. So we want to
yeah.
take full advantage of it. And as a result, we get caught in that whole process. And we are not able to free ourselves. And this is a problem. So one important skill chess players need to learn is, when we think we are in the right direction, we do some analysis, but after some point we realize it is not working out the way we expected it to work. It makes sense to just leave the nuts, take the hand out, and move on with the life, instead of just holding on to it and get stuck in the process. So in our analysis also, we need to let go of some ideas if they are not working. This way, we can try to save time. We don't get desperate because we are open to looking at other ideas, right? We have an open mind. So I can just leave some ideas, I can move on seamlessly to other ideas. This is very important quality for a chess player to acquire, I would say. So we considered bishop g8. Unfortunately, we could not prove that it is the winning methodology, but there is nothing to get upset about. We just saw one idea, it's not working. So probably we simply have to move on to the next idea in the list. So which is more forcing? So we have considered bishop g8, we had considered bishop g6.
Maybe
So what
H4.
other
Maybe.
moves? h4. So h4 or king e2? Which one it makes sense to analyze today? Hello, John Twitch. Welcome. I'm good. How are you? So h4 is more forcing, isn't it?
Yes.
So ideally, we should have started with h4. This is my point, because it's like you directly push the pawn and advance it as quickly as possible. Because the knight is still not on e5, so he doesn't get this knight f3 checks and so on. So let's start analyzing h4. What happens then?
So yeah, H4 he should take. We should take back. Then probably he will still do knight E5, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah.
If we play
So to
H5,
the
then
audience, we are trying to do a live training session with International Master Attila, and he is trying to become a grandmaster. That is his ambition. So this is our first session together, and we are trying to learn about each other well. And I'm also trying to make him realize the importance of calculating in the right way, not take intuitive decisions at critical moments. So this is one of the critical moments in the game, and he's trying to calculate variations. So I won't be helping him, making things easy for him by making moves on the board at some moments when he's calculating some critical variations. I would expect him to try to do all the analysis in his head. I would strongly encourage every one of you to do the same. Try to calculate the variation. So he is obviously telling his thought process aloud. We can try to follow those variations in our head. And if you at some point you feel you are not able to visualize the position in the head, it's very easy. Again, start from the beginning. Tell the moves to yourself in your mind. You can slowly reconstruct that position.
So what I'm thinking actually, so h4, g takes h4, g takes h4, knight e5,
Yeah.
and in bishop f5, I was thinking there to try to stop the knight coming to g4 and
Okay.
f6. With bishop f5, if knight f3 and he tries to win the pawn, then the knight maybe will be again try with king f2, knight takes h4, and moving the bishop to e4 or h7. I think both looks okay, and because then king g3 is coming, I think the next move
Yeah.
to force him. So
So very
probably
good.
he can go again to go with the knight f3. So h4, g takes, knight e5, bishop f5. He cannot play probably knight f3, but if he cannot play knight f3, then maybe he is in trouble because where can the knight go? Mhm.
So what I have been trying to do is like I gave him an interesting position. Now he's calculating variations and I am trying not to give any clues. This is also very important for the coaches. Many coaches, what they do, they try to take things easier for their students because they want the students to feel that they are making progress. And they get that feeling when only when they solve the positions correctly, isn't it? So if the student feels I'm not getting the solution correctly, then he will think maybe this coach is not teaching me well. I'm not improving because I'm not solving this position. So maybe I'm not improving with this coach. So the coaches are kind of apprehensive about this kind of an outcome. So they want to avoid this outcome by giving clues. Whenever they feel the student is struggling, they give some small clues and make it slightly easier for the student. But in an actual tournament play, the player does not get any external help and he has to struggle with his own mind with the position and try to find the answer. Hello Magic Andy 23, thank you for the subscription. Thank you very much. So when we play in a tournament game, there is no external help and we have to struggle with ourselves, struggle with the complexities of the position, rely on ourselves to find the right path, isn't it? So for me, the best approach, the best way a coach can help his student is by not giving clues, at least at the initial stages. Let the student struggle a bit because a chess player should realize not all the moves can be found instantly. All the best moves in the position can be found instantly. We have to be ready to put some effort. We have to be ready to spend some energy in trying to find the analysis, find the correct moves. Now, this we should teach the student. It's very important. So that's why I'm trying not to give any clues to Mr. Attila here. Yep. Thank you, Magic Andy. Welcome. I appreciate it.
So it feels like he need to go maybe to e3 with the knight after h4 g takes h4 g takes a4 because after knight e5,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, maybe bishop f5 looks kind of, for me at least now, it's maybe it's winning.
Yeah, so now you are slowly getting to a situation where you feel after h4, gh4, gh4, knight e5, bishop f5, if he's not going to play knight f3 and knight h4, then probably he doesn't have any other resources and white is probably simply winning the game, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, so this is how usually a mind works. Initially, when we see a position, we get excited by some ideas. And then usually what happens if we don't have the discipline, we straight away go into those ideas which grabbed our attention. And then sometimes it works, sometimes it does not. And if it works, everything is good. But if it does not work, then we become desperate and we start panicking because we saw some idea, we got very excited, and unfortunately, it does not work. And then we panic. And once we get into the panic mode, then our mind is not calm anymore and it is more susceptible to make more mistakes. Once we lose our calm mind, then we start making more silly mistakes. So it's very important when we are analyzing in chess. We never get into those desperate moments that easily, right? So because one good way to avoid getting becoming desperate is simply have more possibilities. You consider option A doesn't work, okay, option B is always there. It doesn't work, option C is always there. So we should always have more possibilities for ourselves, and these possibilities we should identify before we become desperate. And we become desperate one if we see one idea it doesn't work, then we get stuck, right? So it is very important before we reach the desperate situation, we make a list of moves, identify our possibilities, and then start analyzing one after the other. Yeah, so Statler got it right. The solution is h4, and generally there is a principle in minor piece endgames. So here there are no rooks and queens, there are only minor pieces available here. In minor piece endgames, having a rook pass pawn is very ideal. So depend, like even if black has with the knight a rook pass pawn, or white with the bishop has a rook pass pawn, in both the cases it is very good, because let us say if the knight has to stop this h pawn, so let's say he comes something like this and manages to block the pawn on h5, h6. The knight goes to h6 and blocks the pawn on h5. Just look at the knight on h6. It looks really horrible, isn't it? It's stuck on the edge
Yeah.
of the board, not contributing at all. So it just becomes a purely defensive piece. So in general, it's better to create a rook pass pawn in minor pieces in games if you're playing for a win. And I would even stretch this to some extreme conclusion, like most of the endgames in minor pieces where a superior bishop is winning against a knight, in majority of the cases it will be because of a rook pass pawn. So we will see more endgames in the future and we can reinforce this point. But what we have to learn is, the important lesson for us is, when we are playing minor piece endgames, and if you are playing for a win, because it is also possible you are trying to save the game from a worse position in a minor piece endgames. If you are playing for a win, it makes sense not to exchange our rook pawns. So let us say if white has uh, black has pawns on h6 and g5, white has a pawn on g3. Instead of taking hg5, it makes sense to push h5, keep the h pawn alive. So keeping the rook pawn alive, if you are playing for a win in minor piece endgame, is a very good technique to play for win. So my point is, when we see chess, we just don't analyze positions and try to find moves. What we are also trying to do when we see chess is teach ourselves to think along multiple ways. So I need to learn to think like this. I need to learn to think like this. So where we have to teach ourselves to think in different ways, look at the position in different angles, and that is when we actually learn and grow. It is not just finding the solution to this position that is more important, but how we think to find the solution. Because if we can make the corrections in our thinking process, make these small adjustments to our thinking process, then our possibility of finding the answers in similar situations increases phenomenally. Fine. Yeah, hello Saptak. I'm good. How are you? So the solution is, yeah, now we are just trying to simply advance the h pawn. So someone, either the king or the knight, should try to come to the king side and stop the pawn. And we can see very easily that the king is too far away. So it is the knight who has to do that job. So he can come here, now threatening to win the pawn, and white can simply ignore the threat. We are actually preventing this idea. He could actually come from knight e5. He could come either knight d7 or knight g4 and win this pawn. So this is also one continuation he had in mind, and then maybe he can sacrifice his knight for the h pawn and maybe hope to make a draw with his 4 versus 5 pawn versus 3. That is also a possibility. So bishop f5 is very good. Now we are threatening to simply rush the pawn, and then knight will have no squares to stop the pawn. So his last hope is try to win this pawn, and now this is a domination. So the bishop dominates the knight completely, Knight cannot move. If he tries to come with the king, and he is one move short, just one move. If it is black to play, he would have played here and is fine. So in this position, what we can learn is few things. Let me quickly summarize. One, the importance of creating rook pass pawn in minor piece endgames. And like Mr. Attila said earlier, it is very in cases where both sides have pass pawn. The side with the knight has a pass pawn. The side with the bishop also has a pass pawn. In such scenarios, the bishop usually proves to be superior because the bishop can at the same time help the advance of his pass pawn and also prevent the advance of the opponent's pass pawn. So let us imagine a situation where let's say we have this kind of pass pawn. So let's say let us say there is no pawn on a3 and he is trying to push his pawn like this. Now I can simply keep my bishop on b1, which will control the a pawn and also aid my pass pawn. So we'll see such scenarios later, but these are all some small points we need to remember. And we also learned that initially the first impression was Mr. Attila was very um, happy with the move bishop f5, right? So it was less concrete, and probably you thought it's a very safe way to preserve our advantage and play for a win. We are not risking much, and we also don't have to spend a lot of time and energy to calculate some variations. So this will look like a safe way to preserve the advantage and continue a game. But it is in these type of positions where we feel opponent doesn't have much counter play. Sometimes it makes sense to go for the kill immediately. Look for the forcing continuations in the position. Try to finish the game then and there. Now, for this, we need to be alert and we should be ready to exert ourselves in the analytical process. We should not let our laziness to come in the way. Yeah. So let me go to some other position. Now we had seen some bishop versus knight ending. Now let me keep another position. Okay, it is white to play. Infinity bot. I'm extremely sorry. I saw your message bit late. Maybe towards the end, if you have time, we can try to go in this line. But I think infinity bot, white just pushes the h pawn. King will be too far away. Just advancing the h pawn should win.
So white to move here.
White to play. Yeah.
You know, some of the things I recognize. Yeah, white has some nice center pawns. That's one thing. Yeah, he's a d6 bishop, which yeah, it's in the opponent territory, and I don't know if that looks nice. I don't know if it can be really useful, but it looks nice in the opponent territory. Yeah, black has the a5 with the queen and the rook. Also the b3 pawn. So interesting because the white b3 pawn is attacked. So that's a target, the b3 pawn, and white has no target like that. So it feels like maybe even white has this nice center, but maybe like black is attacking because
No
of
clear
his
weaknesses in black's position to attack.
yeah, no weaknesses, and like black is attacking our b3 pawn.
Okay. So let me quickly summarize what Mr. Attila's initial impressions are. So what he was trying to do when he sees a new position, he's trying to first understand the position well. He's trying to go deep. He's trying to identify the strengths and weaknesses for both white and black. So some of the strengths he mentioned for white is the presence of these two central pawns. It's a impressive looking center for white, and this bishop on d6 is a nice outpost for the bishop, even though it is not attacking anything, but it is sitting in a very comfortable square, isn't it? And these are the strengths he found. The two strong central pawns and the bishop is very active. And for black, he found that white's b3 pawn is also weak, this pawn, and it is already under some pressure. And black controls the a file. So, and he also mentioned that there are no clear weaknesses in black's position which white can attack and exploit. So this was another of his observation. Okay. So it is white to play. How should white play here?
Yeah, my initial idea would be something like think about, okay, so let's make some candidate moves maybe then. Like one idea is to play something like d5 to try to open up the position for the rook and the queen because of the c. Our rooks is on the c file and the d file, and they are behind the pawn and queen and don't do much.
So
So
basically, Mr. Attila is saying the rooks are in these central files. So we can try to do some action in this area. And he wants to open the position, maybe something like this, so the pieces can open up. So this is something he is considering. Okay.
yeah, or pound d5. I was thinking also, but that's
Pawn
probably
to d5. Okay, so this is another interesting idea. Okay.
not, okay. That's or yeah. I would also consider like pound e5, but I don't like much about the d5 square will be then really weak and then cannot go
Okay.
forward.
So he's considering e5, but he is not happy because the d5 square he will lose control. So e5, d5, knight e5. Three candidate moves so far. So should we stop here and start analyzing these three options, or should we keep continuing to look for more possibilities? What do you think, Mr. Attila? And also to the audience, what do you think? He has come up with three moves: e5, d5, and knight e5. So he has made a list. So can he stop making the list and start analyzing these moves in the list, or he should also try to look for more moves in the list to add to the list? What do you think? Continue making the list. Why? Then when do we stop? Can we forever make list, never analyzing? So when do we stop making this list? It's an important question, isn't it? If there is a switch, we can just press the switch and it stops. But yeah, so Baba Black Sheep, very good. So as long as there are forcing moves in the position, and the forcing moves are, like I said, check, capture, threat, and pawn breaks. Now this pawn breaks is rarely mentioned in books. I have not seen in any book where they mention pawn breaks as forcing moves. But I would say pawn breaks are also very forcing. So as long as you have possibility to play a check or capture or give a threat or make some pawn breaks, you have to keep making the list. Consider all the forcing moves in the list. And if, let us say, for example, even queen e6 is a capture, isn't it? So you must consider it, but just for a second. And you simply don't add it to the list, you reject it right away. But you must see it just for half a second. Hello, Aman Vijay. Welcome. So this is very important. As long as there are forcing moves still possible, we have to keep looking for them. So one way to make list, I would say, is instead of randomly looking for moves in a position, there are two approaches to making the list. How to make this candidate moves list? I would say there are two approaches. One, first you can ask yourself, is there any check possible? So let's try this approach. White can ask, is there any check possible? I don't see any check for white. So we reject check. Then we ask ourselves, any captures? So we make a list of captures. So the captures I can see 1, 2, 3. And out of this, both this and this doesn't make sense. So queen a6 is an possibility. Now, does intuitively do you feel queen a6 is the move?
No,
Is the winning move? No, because it just makes this pawn more weak and
no.
doesn't look like there is no reason or gain for white with this exchange. So we can eliminate this as well. So checks, there are no checks. capture, we saw 3 captures, and none of them seem very appealing. Now the threats, right? So what we can attack in a position.
So
So can white give some threats in this position? So e5 is a threat. We are
if I
attacking the
want
bishop. E5 is a threat. Knight e5 is also a threat, because with knight e5, we are attacking the knight on d7. What else is there
yeah,
any threat moves we are missing?
attack the rook. That's also like bishop c7 or bishop c5. Those are
So
also.
bishop c7, bishop c5, they both attack the rook. So we have to consider those moves as well. What else? Is there any other
And
threat we are missing?
rook a1 maybe.
Yeah, rook a1. So now we have come up with few moves which are threats. So to be precise, rook a1 is attacking the queen, it's a threat. Pawn e5 is attacking bishop, it's a threat. Knight e5 attacking the knight d7 is a threat. Bishop c7 and bishop c5 attacking the rook, these are threats. So when we are making this list, we should not get emotional or overwhelmed. This is possible. Like when we see so many moves, then we immediately panic. If I start analyzing all these moves, won't the possibility of making mistakes increase? So what happens is people don't make list because they intuitively feel like I don't have the capability or capacity currently to even consider or analyze one single variation correctly. And if I'm going to make a big list like this, like 5 moves I need to consider, and then it just increases the probability of me making mistakes. So they feel like this intuitively. As a result, very rarely upcoming players make list, and this is in my view the prime reason why they don't make list, because they feel if I make list the possibility of making mistakes increases phenomenally, so they don't make list. But if we have to teach ourselves to analyze in the correct manner, and I think anyone who is ambitious to get better in their chess, they have to learn this at some point, and I would say sooner the better. So it is very important to teach ourselves to analyze in the right manner. Initially, it could be tough, but I will just share my experience as a coach. Now, Pragnananda, I don't know how many of you know him. He is my student, and when he came to me at the age of 7 and a half, he was like 1800 something like that, or 1750 something like that, and we started doing some calculation, and I push him little harder to analyze, and he was willing to submit himself to this kind of training. He understood quickly that if I can do these difficult things, then doing the easy things will definitely be much easier, right? Less complex things I can easily handle them. So this is the approach generally the strong players take. They intuitively realize that some things are hard, some things are easy. It is just like you can use a lift, you can use the elevator or the lift to go, let's say, 3 floors, or you can take the stairs. And the easy approach is to take the lift, right? Because it's less stressful. I don't have to struggle too much. No effort practically is required from me apart from pushing the buttons. But if I have to take a step, then I have to strain myself, I'll run out of breath, legs will pain, it will take longer, blah, blah, blah. So we usually take the easy way out. So human mind in many ways is like programmed to avoid unfamiliar, risky, stressful situations. It tries to always find the optimum way out. And in chess, sometimes thinking lazily is not the right way. And it is very important we take the hard way, hard path. It's just like someone wants to put on a lot of muscle, and if he's very thin currently, now what we have to do? We have to eat more healthy food, but more importantly, we have to go to the gym and hit the weights, right? And lifting the weights will be painful and it is tough to do. But that is how we gain muscle. So there are situations where we have to take the hard path. And if we can accept it, that yes, I should not try for shortcuts at all times, I should not try to be comfortable all the times. Sometimes I have to do the most difficult path. That's the right way. And it's very important. No steroids. Yeah. Okay. So now let us go to the position again. So when we see 5 threats are possible, like I said, it is very easy to get overwhelmed, right? How am I going to analyze all these 5 moves? Now, the point is, we don't have to go very deep into all the 5 variations. So how do we handle this kind of complexity, or multiple variations are possible? How do we handle? It's quite easy actually. First thing is mentally accept I'm going to analyze all the 5 and find the best move. If you have accepted it that I'm going to do this job, it is easier to do it instead of resisting it in our mind. Because as long as you resist this path, you will not want to go into that path. So simply accept that, okay, if this is what I have to do, I better get it done. So this is the first thing, acceptance. Second, you don't have to give variations everywhere. You can simply use some logic, common sense, or apply some chess principles and reject certain moves. Like Mr. Attila said, he does not like e5 because the d5 square he is losing control. Not only that, there is no follow up after e5. Like you cannot use this e4 square to get some piece into the attack, or open this diagonal, you are able to exploit it. There is no follow up for that. So what we can do, we can simply reject e5 as it's an interesting move, but I don't think it is winning. This can be the conclusion. And what else? We considered knight e5, and what we can do in this case. Maybe I can just take queen into queen for knight e5. And after pawn into, maybe I can take with the bishop also. For example, if knight e5, maybe I can just take. And if you take, maybe I can do this also. And if you take here, maybe I can just move my rook away because you are threatening this. Maybe I can just move my rook to something like this. Now, what is that, Mr. Henry? Am I missing something? Henry, you're trying to say something?
Yeah, black looks fine.
Okay, so Offer Shak is saying, I'm a very intuitive player. I hardly ever seriously consider more than 3 moves. Now, this is very important. And not just Offer Shak, but I think most players are like that. And I don't think that is intuitiveness. I would say it is lack of training or laziness. I know I'm kind of being hard on many players when I am judging a player like this harshly, but I think many times it happens like that. So we don't feel comfortable analyzing long variations or multiple branches. So what we do, we just simply choose the easy way out by seeing just one move, and we can console ourselves saying, I'm intuitive, right? But the thing is, like, everyone has intuition. If a mosquito is flying, I try to catch the mosquito, right? The mosquito won't stay there. And it doesn't see me, my hand coming. It intuitively feels and flies the other way, right? So even a mosquito has intuition. So all living beings, we have intuition. So we should not rely too much on intuition until we become reasonably strong player, because the intuition is good and intuition will point us in the right direction when we are already reasonably strong, because then all our experience, our skills, our knowledge, all that will help us in the point us in the right direction. In blitz games, you can trust intuition. When you're running short of time, you can trust intuition. But if you have reasonable amount of time on the clock, then I would strongly recommend not to trust intuition too much. intuition can guide us in the direction in which we have to think, but intuition should not decide which move we should be playing. Okay, so knight e5 is interesting, but maybe it's not the best. So what we are doing here, we are removing moves from the list. We made a list and simply we start removing moves from the list. Yeah, SLC 42. I am not saying you have to agree with me on this or on any of the points I make. As a coach, I just share my viewpoint, my way of looking at things, and you can just consider it, and then you can always find your own path. It's perfectly fine. Okay, so L ignorant. Is it okay if I never play blitz and bullet, only rapid and classical? I'm not saying that at all. I would say, like, I have played a lot of blitz when I was a young player, and I know many coaches discourage playing blitz because they think the player will just develop the habit of not thinking before making decisions. So they are scared this could happen. So they discourage young players from playing blitz. But I would say, like, you have to teach yourself to think quickly. You have to teach yourself to think slowly, deliberate consideration, all types of thinking we have to learn. And chess should also be fun. So I wouldn't discourage you from playing blitz. Teach yourself how to think and play blitz together. It's a good combination. So, Mr. Attila, um,
I think we can also probably remove the bishop c7 and bishop c5 moves. Those could maybe like just plays rook b5 and
hmm.
or
So
exchange.
again, so bishop c7, bishop c5, we are not calculating much. We are just using some logic, common sense, and removing them. So e5, bishop c7, bishop c5, knight e5. Four moves we have eliminated from the list. So we only have queen
Rook
a6 and rook
a1.
a1.
Yeah, rook a1, which yeah, rook a1, queen takes, rook takes, and there we can probably need to make some candidates after the.
Hmm.
Yeah, so giving up the two rooks for the queen. Yeah, that's interesting. If there is something very concrete, then maybe the queen can be good. Other way, the two rooks maybe can be better than the queen.
Hmm. So, Henry, you need to go further in your analysis. You are in the right direction.
Maybe there d5 I was thinking about after the get the queen for the two rooks to play like d because the d one other thing which I consider is in my kind of imagination the d7 knight is unprotected, so I try to look for pieces which are unprotected in the opponent position because maybe they can be later attacked or used for some kind of combinations. Because if the c pawn never comes after the exchange rook a1, queen takes, rook takes d5. If the c pawn takes, then queen c8 means the knight. So we cannot take the c pawn, but maybe the e pawn, like recapturing the e pawn. Still, the problem is we are not really settling anything because if you take on c6, you just recapture with the rook.
Hmm.
But
So, Mr. Attila, take your time. You don't have to rush. Take your time. So, in the meantime, I will just respond to some chat messages here. So, Dozy the doctor, a beginner here, wondering if it's a good idea to practice games in 3-minute blitz to understand move placement faster than a 15-minute, 3-minute game when I'm overthinking everything. Um, so, I don't like the term overthinking in this question. So, sometimes we have to try to go deep into the position, and I wouldn't consider it as overthinking. Sometimes it is simply necessary to think for long period of time. And so ideally, the best way to analyze is to meet four expectations. And I've mentioned this one of the earlier streams. So one thing that is required from a player is basically what we are trying to, hello chess guy, welcome. So what we are actually trying to achieve in chess right? This is a very important question. What are we actually trying to achieve when we see chess? When we play chess, we are trying to win the game. We are trying to become international master, grandmaster, candidate master, FIDE master, whatever. We're trying to improve our rating. We are trying to beat the opponent, score a point, win a tournament, get prize. So there are many people, different priorities. Okay, not at my age. So there are different priorities. But when we are practicing chess, when there is no opponent, like for example here, we are trying to analyze a position. What is the objective? What are we actually trying to do? Improve our chess vision. What else? Okay, chess guy. Nice coincidence. Yeah, Henry, good. Appreciate it. Understand the board. No, what we are trying to learn is when we are practicing, we are trying to improve our chess strength, right? We are trying to become a stronger player. We are trying to improve our chess strength. That's why we see chess, isn't it? Now, how do we know whether we are getting better or not? How do we know whether we are improving? How do we know whether we are getting stronger or not? It's simply by the quality of the analysis we make, right? So I would say the objective of a player who is ambitious and seeing chess to improve his chess strength is to learn how to analyze. Okay, learning how to analyze. So Botvinnik mentioned very nicely. He said chess is the art of analysis. So basically, we have to teach ourselves, we have to learn how to analyze any position, any given position. And if the position demands us to attack, we will attack. If the position demands us to play quietly, we'll play quietly. If the position demands us to go to an end game, we will go to end game. So here, my personal likes and dislikes, they don't affect my decision making that much. I simply develop the capabilities to give what the position demands, deliver what the position demands. Yeah, Henry, fine. So,
Okay, I think
Astro, yeah, Attila, yeah,
I got some ideas. I don't know if you.
yeah, we can tell, please. So, you can decide whether you want to continue the analysis or stop the analysis and share your views. It's entirely up to you.
So yeah, so like rook a1, queen takes, rook takes, and there, that d7 knight is unprotected, and I got the idea maybe to try to attack it, and actually there I play, first I consider d5, but I was thinking e takes d5, e takes d5, and maybe there black has time, but I was thinking then next we play first e5, the idea is to open up the fourth rank to attack the knight from g4 with the queen, so like playing e5, the bishop moves to g5 or d8, and then play d5 to sacrifice the pawn. Because if he captures with the c pawn, then queen c8, then probably will win the knight. If he captures with the e pawn, then queen g4, and it looks like the knight has no really square to move, because if the queen will penetrate with c8 if the knight moves to f8 or b8. B8 not possible because the bishop is capturing, c5 was not possible because the bishop is capturing. So that's like a good variation. You need to check if Black has some resources which I missed.
Yeah, okay. So, Ms. Attila, you can take a call whether you want to stop the analysis or check for any loopholes in your analysis and then get back. Diminium, I'll just keep discussing with the audience. So if my voice is disturbing you, you can always mute me when you are thinking, and then when you are ready to tell the answer, you can unmute me and you can share your views. So for the audience, yeah. So Doozy the Doctor, I feel like when I am playing a faster game, I am seeing moves faster than when I have a whole bunch of time. I am forced to react faster and make a strategy that's giving me more vision into better moves. No, it perfectly makes sense to me. I'm a chess coach and I believe in psychology a lot, chess psychology, because we are all humans and our thoughts, likes, dislikes, emotions, our thinking habits, thinking methodology, they all influence the way we think and take decisions. So it's really very interesting for me from that perspective to listen to uh, different players' thinking process. So, but I'm also like inclined to think that in many cases we understand what we are doing, but we come to wrong, incorrect conclusions, and this is where the whole problem is in many cases. So, for example, some players will say, like, I always get a good position, and then I get into time trouble. I run short of time, and then I make mistakes because of short of time. So, if only I had lot of time, then I would win all these positions. So they blame their losses on the time trouble or the blunders induced by shortage of time, right? But I feel it is a way of escapism, I would say. Like we are trying to blame our faults on something external. It is like there is nothing wrong with me. It is only the mechanical clock that is giving me less time, and that is making me to make mistakes, something like this. But I would say, like, this is very important to be more responsible and be as objective as possible. Okay, thank you for that, dossier doctor. And this is what I'm trying to do in my streams. So let's see how it goes. Yeah, so the thing is, we have to uh, consciously see how we think and how we accept responsibilities for our decisions. Because if we keep trying to escape from the decisions we take, it is like it's not my decision, even though I played the move. Because there was some external reason why I took this decision, then it's very hard to learn from those decisions or make improvements. So, first thing is, like, I got into time trouble and no one forced me to get into time trouble, right? So, it's my mistake, my bad. I got into time trouble. So, I shouldn't get into time trouble instead of saying I made a mistake because of time trouble. So that's very important to think like that. So in your case, Mr. Dozy, you said I felt like when I'm playing faster, I'm seeing moves faster. It is not only you are seeing moves faster, you are forced to make a move quickly. You are forced to take a decision. So you are taking a decision. That's it. When you have a lot of time, you are not taking decisions as quickly as the position demands. So that is where we have to make changes. So, Mr. Attila, any conclusions?
Yeah, I think that's looks like
Simplified
that
answer.
works. I think that variation which I
Yeah.
calculated. So like,
So, rook a1 is the correct move. So, now let's see. He has to take, otherwise, you lose the a8 rook. And now e5,
now
bishop under
e5, yeah.
attack. So, he goes, and now d5. This is the key move. And now there are two continuations. Otherwise, I will simply win this pawn, and this pass pawn will become very deadly. And if it captures with the c pawn, this is lost. And if he captures with the e pawn, we go queen g4. The knight is under attack. Let's say if you go here, you always have this, and it's over, right? Yeah, Henry got it much ahead of before others. That's good, Henry. Okay, so now the thing is, now there is a using this position. I would like to teach one concept. It is called scanning technique. Okay, so I will share what. Sorry, drawback principle. So let me share my understanding of this drawback principle. And again, I have heard this word drawback only in one place in Dvoretsky's book. I don't remember the exact book. Probably it's the Attack and Defense book where he has mentioned about the drawback. I am not very sure about this. Somewhere I have seen him like devote like 2-3 lines for this, but he didn't go deeply. But I feel this is one way of thinking which almost all the top players employ it, but they have not really explained it. Just like even before Mr. Koto wrote about the tree of analysis, the concept of candidate moves, it is not like the grandmasters before, the strong players before he wrote that book, they were not applying those candidate moves. Probably most strong players were doing it already, but it is simply that before Kotov, no one defined it and put it on paper, so everyone can understand and relate to it. Similarly, I feel one such thing is the drawback principle. Now, what does the drawback principle means, and when, in which type of positions they will be more useful to us? Let me explain. So, whenever in a position we play a forcing move or we give a threat, and our opponent responds with a defense. Okay, so you give a threat and opponent responds with a defense. Then immediately in such positions, the side who is giving the threat will get initiative. He can seize the initiative. The initiative passes on to him because opponent is playing defensively. So whenever your opponent plays a defensive move, then it is very important that you apply the drawback principle for the next few moves. Now, what does the drawback principle means? Now, any move, be it a pawn move or a piece move, like whenever we play a move, we will have some ideas, obviously, isn't it? We will have some ideas, reasons why we play a move. So, the good side of our moves, we are already aware. But what we are not aware most of the time is what is wrong with our move, the drawback of our moves. We are not aware of this at many places. So, similarly, when our opponent plays a defensive move, it is very important to pinpoint the drawback of the opponent's previous move and try to gain advantage, take advantage of it. Now, let me explain. Now, when we make a pawn move, what happens is, let us say I make this pawn move. Okay, so what happens here? The adjacent squares to the pawn, they become weak, right? So when the pawn is here, these squares are not weak. The pawn is controlling them. But when I play a move like this, the adjacent squares become weak. So when I play this, these squares become weak, right? Similarly, when I play d5, these squares become weak. So whenever we make a pawn move, the adjacent squares, they become weak. So if you can exploit those weaknesses, then you're taking advantage. So you can say you're using the drawback of the opponent's previous move. Now, what about the piece move? When we make a piece move, where are the drawbacks? What it weakens? It is, let us say, now my king is from this square, it is controlling all these squares, right? From G2, it is controlling all these squares. Now, when I make a move like this, now it is controlling some new squares, but it has abandoned certain squares, right? For example, this, right? So when I play king h3, I have abandoned the f2 pawn. So if black can play a move which can take advantage of either f2 or f3 because they have lost their support. So let us say I play this, right? So queen a2 is taking advantage or exploiting the drawback of king h3. So do you understand? So when your piece moves from one square to another, it is controlling some new squares, but it is losing control of some of the squares it was controlling earlier. Now, if you can exploit those, then you are playing for you are expecting the drawback of the previous move. So now let us see how this drawback principle applies here. So when we play rook a1, he is forced to take and we capture. He is forced to take. Now, what is the drawback of this rook a1? What's the
So
drawback?
what's the difference with ace rank?
Yeah, the eighth rank becomes exposed, right? So we should immediately get attracted by this move because when he plays this, I can get this, right? So we should immediately start thinking along these directions because it has abandoned the eighth rank. So how can I gain entry for my queen along the eighth rank? So when you see d5, then you consider this move and then you see the files are not opening because when he takes, I can simply take back, right? The files are not opening by force. So we should reject d5 and then we should see, but is there any other way I can exploit this 8th rank? And we should generally see forcing moves, check, capture, threat. There are no checks possible, no captures like queen c6, queen e6 don't make sense. Threat is this, you can attack something. The other is these two moves, right? And then you see e5, bishop d8. Now what is the drawback again? Now the bishop abandoned this thing and the 8th rank is still weak, and then you find this. Now if he takes, the drawback is queen c8. With the pawn on c6 I could not have played, and if he takes with the e pawn, Now the drawback is this diagonal has been opened and you exploit. And when he moves, the drawback is this square we have access. So this is the drawback principle. Now this drawback principle is very useful when you try to calculate variations. Okay, when you're calculating forcing moves, apply this drawback principle. When you have multiple choices, you can quickly choose the correct move from the multiple choices you have. So Magic Andy is saying I'm rated just about 2400 and most of what you teach is rather new to me. Up until now, I have never consciously considered the activity of the pieces when evaluating a position. Okay, so good to know that, Magic. Thank you for the feedback. And I heard someone talking about switching between tactical brain and puzzle brain during a chess game. I like that idea very much. This reminds you of thinking about a situation for a little longer when you encounter a puzzle you should solve. Okay, so um, yeah, so this is the correct approach. Now, the question is, Mr. Attila, what do you think you gained by solving these two positions? So it is not just a question of finding the solution, right?
Yeah.
What do you think, or what do you learn about yourself? How you are analyzing, how you are thinking? Are you happy with that? Are you happy with the quality of your analysis? Are you happy with the moves you are considering and rejecting? Are you happy with the time you take to do this whole thing? I'm curious to know about that.
But I knew like I did not really use not much the candidate moves principle, but so more impulsive thinking and maybe investing times I did in things which was not necessary, I think, earlier. So that I think was one important point for the future to make the candidate moves and this thinking techniques to eliminating the first the things which are not really from the candidates pool, which is like maybe logically you can eliminate or other way, and then consider the really challenging ones. That's a new thing.
Mm. And
Yeah,
I'm also
originally
curious
I
from
did
the.
not think about
Yeah,
this
sorry.
rookie one move example. That was interesting. That was also like a
You
strange
didn't
thing.
consider it very. You didn't consider it for a very long time. The Muruke one.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
found it towards after a lot of effort. Yeah, and this could have been easily avoided had you taken little more effort to make a list before you went into the variations. So, and one good way to make list like is like I mentioned, just first look for checks in the position and then make a list of captures, make a list of threats, make a list of pawn breaks. So this way, there's a good chance you will capture all the important candidate moves in any position. So that way you can save a lot of time and effort. Yeah, Mr. Henry, what you're trying to say? I'm also curious to know from the audience, what did you learn from these two positions? First, look at hanging pieces. Okay, generally they say hanging pieces and pins. When there are hanging pieces and pins, usually tactics come. Okay, so um, what is it that you learned, audience, from these two positions? What did you learn about yourself? How you were thinking and where you need to change? No, Baba Black Sheep, that is being too harsh on yourself. So it is very easy to get into some defensive mode, saying I'm not good enough, I'm bad, and so on. There is no reason to be pessimistic when you are not doing certain things in the way you should be doing. You just have to be more patient. Are you willing to learn these things? That's the whole point. If you are, it's very easy to give up, right? Right, when things are hard, it's very easy to give up. How to explain how to think to my students? Okay, so Baba Batship, you are a coach. Okay, good to know that. Okay, so I didn't know to continue candidates until forcing moves run out. Okay, so EOHS too lazy with the list. So while making the list, many of us are very impatient. We just want to get it done. Okay, so I'm supposed to make list, let me quickly make list A B C. Okay, I've done. right? That's not the way to make a list. You have to be sincere about the whole process, right? The process is more important than the outcome, because only if you learn the right way of looking at things, you will get the answer consistently correct. Otherwise, we are mostly relying on luck on any given day or given any position. Okay, so look at hanging pieces, look, checks and threads. It's not takes, it's threads, okay? And takes, any kind of forcing moves, tactical threads, okay? So basically, what I'm also trying to stress here is in some positions, you just have to put some effort and try to go deeper into the position. So in both the positions, it was possible to see till the forced win. There is a forced win available, and it is possible to find it till the end, but it takes more time, it takes more effort, right? And we also need to have good concentration to do this, because our mind will refuse to do this because we are kind of straining our mind to do something more than it is programmed to do. So it will always resist. Let us stop the analysis. Let us play this move. You have already tried hard enough. But we have to constantly overrule the temptation, and we should try to go deeper and deeper. And that is the way we teach ourselves how to think. So I remember one conversation I had with the Grandmaster Sureshekar Ganguly. He's from India. He is like 2640, 2650 level player for like a decade or two, and he is very good in calculation. So when we were young, I was asking him. Suddenly, I noticed he made a big jump in his calculation skills. So I asked him, like, which book you are referring to. So I thought it is just a question of book. So if I start working on the same book, I can also make similar progress. So I asked, like, which book you are referring to improve your calculation. I see like you made quite good progress in your calculation skills. He said it is not the book. It is earlier when I see some variation, I will stop at some point. The mind will say, stop. Okay, let us take a decision. Let's play the move. But now I have told myself last few months that whenever my mind says stop here, I try to push the mind a little bit more and say, let us see one more move ahead instead of stopping at this point. So this way I force myself to see a little bit more. And initially, as a result, I was making some blunders, very silly blunders, because I'm not used to this kind of thinking. But then when I persisted without giving hope, I slowly started making progress in my calculation skills. Now, instead of stopping at point A, I can go till point B, and he is learning to go till point C, and so on. So, this kind of that pushing yourself a little bit more when you feel you have to stop is also a very important quality we need to develop. Okay. So, Mr. Attila, so what do you think? Like we have had 2 or 13 minutes now into the session. So should we stop ourselves here, or what do you think?
Whatever best for you. I am available until you are fine.
Okay. So how
But
about the
thank you.
audience? So
Thank
what do
you
you
very much.
think? Should we continue, or we see one more position, or we stop here, take some few questions maybe? What do you think? Want to continue? How about others? Okay. So maybe one last position.
Would be
You're okay
great.
with it, Mr. Attila?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really happy.
Okay. Fine. Okay. So in this position, white played rook e2. Just trying to challenge the rook on e8. Now you can see the white king not very happy.
Mhm.
It's white black to play. So maybe I can flip the board for the audience. Yes, John Wich, I will do that. So I will post all the videos, all the live streams I'm doing here on the other channel as well. So you can watch it whenever you feel like.
Okay, so what I see here
Mhm.
is, yeah, there are pieces which are tagged. Yeah, the C3 knight is kind of pinned, attacked by the C6 rook. The C1 rook is unprotected. Also the E8 rook is also unprotected, so that should be done something about that. The position is very open, kind of strategically the position looks kind of equal because the pawn structure is symmetrical. But the knight, the white king is better than the black king a little bit. The white knight also closer to the center of the action than the black knight. So regard of that is white is better, but the c3 knight is pinned. So yeah, I would make like candidate, a few candidates like rook ec8 would be one of very direct attacking move and candidate to attack the knight and also the rook because of the c5. What else candidates? Quickly, I would look also rook takes c3, of course, and rook takes e2 because those are captures. Yeah, those are so. Yeah, rook takes c3 also check. That's because of the check. The capture is because rook takes e2 or rook takes c3. And attacking moves is rook c8 is an attacking move. Rook f6. Rook f6 check. Wow, I did not consider that. Rook f6 check. That's because the white king looks like in a little bit trouble. So I think those would be probably my candidate moves. Those 1, 2, 3, 4 moves. Like rook takes c3, rook takes e2, rook f6 check, and rook c8. And probably I would start at rook f6. Let me look if any more candidate moves I should make, but yeah, I don't see more candidate moves. And I'm tempted to start with rook f6 as the most direct way to go even for some checkmating ideas. Because yeah, it may be rook f6, king g4, rook f4 check there. Actually, I see a checkmate. If he moves there king g5, then pawn f6, king takes h5, g6 to checkmate. So he should take on h5 after rook f4 to avoid that checkmate. I don't know if there is something, yeah, some other checkmate there, or just okay there. Oh, I would be able to play f6 and g6. It would be a checkmate actually. Yeah, actually, I can just play f6 there because he cannot avoid g6 checkmate. Looks like. Yeah, so maybe this is it. I think rook f6 check, king g4 is the only move. Rook f4 check. Then if king g5, then that's a direct checkmate with f6 check. King takes h5, g6 checkmate. Or if after rook f6 check, king g4, rook f4 check, king takes h5, then pawn plays f6, and yeah, he cannot really avoid the g6 check. No, he can play g4. Oh la la. Can play g4 to block the fourth rank, so I cannot. So that there is no checkmate after g6 because he can go back to h4. Okay, so it's hmm. So I feel the critical position is rook f6 check, king g4, rook f4 check, king takes h5. Oh, so maybe there I need to make again candidate moves. Again, look for maybe checks, captures, and attacking move strats. Just rook takes e2, knight takes d2. Probably that makes not much difference. f6 g4. Can I do, because that looks like very close to a checkmating situation. f6 g4. There maybe rook, then again a threat, rook f3 there, to simply rook takes a3 checkmate. He can go to protect maybe with rook h1. Maybe there if I play something like rook h8 with the idea of playing g6 check and then king g8 to open up on the h5 and checkmating him. Oh, this is hard.
Yeah, B is fine.
Okay, so rook f6 check, king g4, rook f4 check, king takes h5. Yeah, f6. That's, I think it looks like that's really necessary to do f6 the other way. So he goes to g5. So f6 g4. That looks like a position where if I rook f3, that's also gonna force him. Actually, that's maybe not even force him, but you can also play g5 there. That's another resource for white to maybe escape. And then it opens up for the g4 square. The question is, after g5, I just that's just good. So I need to reject that rook f3. There is no resources there for black. G6 check, just it goes to g4 with the king, and then probably it's no more king coming. If rook takes h3, then king g4. So, well, so maybe rook f3 is not good because of g5. Okay, what if I can I do somehow differently? G6 check instead of the king h4. Yeah, there he's threatening to play king g3. Probably I don't have. If I play there, rook f3, sit on g5, and then take on f3, then take on h3. Then you can still play g5 there. G5. That's not good. One thing I really quickly consider in the very beginning if I can win the knight, because this looks nice, this checkmating ideas, but if I with rook c8, if he protects it with rook c2, I can play something like b5 with the idea of b4, but probably can play b5, then b4. So then I play a5, then he plays a3. Probably I I can come back with the knight f6 with the idea of knight d5. Comes with the king to have maybe king e3, knight d5. Check. He goes to maybe d2 with the king. Actually, that's interesting because it looks like he's near kind of like in a Zugzwang kind of situation there. Like I cannot really move white. So which one to go deeper? That's the first check, because there's a few maybe there's a checkmate, but the other one is also this looks maybe there is to win the knight. And this is the question: what's the right thinking technique? Which one to go forward, or in the very beginning, which one to start with?
No, if both are winning, you just choose any one. But you just have to make sure both are winning. In that case, it doesn't matter which one we choose. We can choose according to our style or taste or tournament situation. It's fine.
Yeah, the checkmate. Let me maybe go back to, because that's it looked promising in the beginning, but there's something which you said with the monkey. Maybe that comes in my baby to
Yeah.
reconsider
So,
the.
like you said, rook e8 is good enough as well. You can just put the knight under a long-term pin and exploit it with b5. That's what happened in the game, and he won, which is fine. Nothing wrong with it. But in analytical training, whatever resources are there in the position, we should bring them all out in our analytical process. So let's try to find a mate after rook f6.
Yeah.
How can we
So
create this mating net?
Yes, rook f3, f6, king g4. I think rook f4 is really necessary. Rook f4, or it's not necessary. Or not. Some tricky moves like king g6. Certainly still rook f4. Then certainly rook f4 checkmate, but yeah, probably can just do like knight d5. No, he cannot because his rook is hanging, but he can play maybe pawn h4 to open up for the king to h3 square. But that was like kind of like new resource, which I did not consider after rook f6, king g4, not yet. So let's just go with rook f4 check, king takes h5. Look if there I can improve. f6. Still I must, because I don't play f6, what else I can do? We certainly play king g5. Cannot the rook, I cannot really move the f4 rook anywhere. Other rook h8, that makes any sense. He plays king g5 and whatnot. So f6 looks kind of forced to box in the king to f6, and then white plays g4. Certainly he certainly plays g5 there. Maybe I play something like rook h8 there. Rook h8 there. That makes then he plays g. Then if he plays there g5, then I play king g8 check, king g6. Oh. His g5 pawn is called the other way. Rook h6 would be a checkmate, but This G5 pawn is covering that. So rook f6, king g4, rook f4, king takes h5, f6, g4. What other resource I have there? Yeah, there those candidates are rook. So the rook candidates were the rook f3, maybe rook h8, g6 check. I look those as like 3 candidates. If there's any more candidates there, any more captures, no. Other checks like rook f5 is probably not happening. I looked like rook f3 and looked like there after g5 that was kind of over. I did not look any follow-up. So what if g6 check, then king h4, and if there I can see any, again like rook f3, but then g5 looks like just opens up for the king. And he's running out on g3 if I don't play rook f3. So it looks like g6 also not good. Rook h8, then g5. Oh, maybe I moved the rook f4. Maybe I make to block the king because there's sitting g6 check. Then he cannot play g6 because then king g8 is a check. Ah, that's interesting. But okay. And if he captures an f, but he can capture g6, no? Because then again the g5, the square is available for him. Ah, that looked nearly good. That so okay, rook f6, king g4, rook f4, king takes h5, f6, g3, rook h8, g5. Maybe rook rook g3 there. Actually, maybe rook g3 that covers also the g4 square. Because he cannot take on f6 because then king g8 checkmate. Cannot play g6, king checkmate, and I have opening with king g8 checkmate. If he plays there king h4, then I just take on g5 with the g rook, and then again settling checkmate. Wow, that looks now good. Wow, maybe let's look at. I missed something. So rook f6 check, king g4, rook f4 check, king takes h5, f6, g4, rook h8.
Yeah, rook h8 is important. And then
e5, and my rook is where is my rook? One moment. Maybe I'm missing where my okay. One moment. Maybe the rook was not there where I was originally. So rook f6 check, king g4, rook f4 check, king takes h5, f6, g4, rook h8, g5. My rook is already on f4. Oh, we're there. Yeah. Okay, moment. G5. So from f4 I cannot go to g6, that's sure.
Yeah, so he cannot play g5 because g6 is checkmate.
Yeah. So that's my original. Okay, that was my original. Okay, so he cannot play g5. Yeah. So maybe what can he do there? Actually, maybe he can. There king h4. So that okay, there king h4. But then if king king h4, then he's sitting. Then maybe then rook f3 to block so he cannot run out. Now again I'm threatening checkmate, so he should probably go play g5 there. But then it's coming. Maybe then okay then even I can consider play like f5 with the idea of, but let's look at first the very concrete move like king g6 check and king goes to g4.
Bibble, congratulations. He's going to buy a car today. Fantastic. Take care, Bibble. Yeah. Bye-bye.
So let's back again. So rook f6 check, king g4, rook f4 check, king takes h5, f6 g4, rook to h8, then king h4. That's the critical situation. Then rook to h3, then pawn to g5. Try to imagine that position. My rook is on f3, the pawn is on g5. But maybe I just played there pawn f5 actually, and that's then it's threatening to do a checkmate with king g6 and also with king g8. His king, if his king goes to h5 back, then g6 check, and then checkmate with the king. Can he do something? Maybe it looks like he cannot do anything there actually. He can do something like maybe rook, rook e6 and then rook h6 to sacrifice the rook to avoid the checkmate, but then still we are up like an exchange. Okay, I think maybe I got it.
Yeah. Please tell me.
So this is, should I tell the variation or it's okay?
Yeah, please.
So I feel like rook f6 check, king g4, rook f4 check, king takes h5, then f6, then g4, then rook h8, then king h4, then rook f3, then pawn g5, and then black plays pawn to f5. And certainly king g6 checkmate or king g8 checkmate. He can play, okay, one moment, he can play pawn g6 check. No, that's just a checkmate, I just take the king, the same checkmate. So this is my solution, or I hope this is good. Is it good or I need to calculate something else?
Okay. So let us see. Now, like you said, this is good enough. Now, let's say if I play here, this b5. This continuation we have to see. And then we bring the knight. So if he comes here, now you can do this. And if he moves, you can just give a check and go knight d3, fork. And this is winning. So this is good enough. But generally there is in many places what happens, many situations, we will have opportunity to win material, to try to gain material like this. Or in this case, the additional problem for white is this unfortunate position of his king. The king is also kind of weak. So whenever the opponent king is weak, I would strongly recommend not to try to win material. Instead, try to go for mate and finish the game. So from that angle, I think this is more to the point. Till now, it's more or less forced. And when we see the king, we should see, okay, checkmate. But then he has this square. So this prophylactic move to try to give a checkmate. And generally what happens, many players, they stop at this point and they think, okay, next move g6, it's mate. So whenever they come out with some interesting idea, they try to stop the analysis before they find some good defensive resources for the opponent. And if we want to improve our analytical skills, we should not stop the analysis prematurely as soon as we come up with an winning attempt. And it is very important we try to find some defensive resource for the opponent. And the only defensive resource is to play g4, because now if g6 we can try to run away. And now this move is very nice. And here we are trying to simply come back and king g6, rook checkmate. So if here we simply have this mate, so he can go king h4. Yeah, hello monochrome, nice, welcome. And now this move. Again we are threatening something like, let's say I make a dummy move, I play g5 here and checkmate. So rook of 3 is quite nice. And after g5, only way we try to give ourselves an escape square. Now there are two ways to win. One, I can give this check, he has to go, and now we take this. The idea is rook h4 mate. There is no defense.
Okay.
So this is one possibility. The other is to play f5. Now the threat is again either king g6 or king g8. And now this move is there. And here again we can play g6. Idea king g7 or g8, it's checkmate, cannot be stopped. So if he gives a check, we can just come back and it's mate. Now again here what will happen usually is we will want to win like this because we are gaining some material. And this is always a problem with many players. Whenever they gain material in some variation, they blindly go for it. Instead, it makes sense to, but now you see the pieces are not well placed, isn't it? So it's kind of stuck. So instead of losing all our attack and putting our pieces in odd squares, it makes sense to reject gain of material and try to go for mate still. And that is possible with this cool move, which is threatening both the king moves and he cannot stop both, and it's a mate. Yeah, so one important lesson from this position, when there is a possibility to gain material or go for mate, it makes sense to go for mate and finish the game immediately. But this will usually mean the gain of material will usually involve less effort, but going for mate will involve little more effort from our part. And that is precisely why most players simply prefer to gain material instead of investing this extra time and effort. So always we have to try to overcome this temptation to go back into our comfort zone, where we try to find an easy way out of every problem. Then we will simply get used to that kind of mentality. So it's very important that we push ourselves constantly to come out of our comfort zone and try to do the hard things. And once we start doing the hard things, that simply means maybe a couple of more minutes effort. And if we are willing to teach ourselves this, then it means everywhere we will usually choose the best continuation in any given position. Yeah. So thank you very much, Mr. Attila. It was my pleasure and a great honor to
Thank you.
analyze these positions together. But I noticed, like in the last position, many times you were trying to find the position, because sometimes you were getting confused where your rook was. So then you went back to the initial position and told yourself, okay, rook f6, king g4, rook f4, right? Few times I saw that happening.
Yes.
So probably you can solve more puzzles like this. Just take some puzzle, but try to work out all the variation in the head. And I would strongly recommend this for all the players who are watching this. Like if you are ambitious in your chess, it is absolutely necessary to try to see as deep as possible when you are analyzing. And our mind will say, resist this method of training. It will say, okay, let me stop it here, right? But we have to tell ourselves, no, I have to get my visualization skills. I have to improve my visualization skills. So I have to push myself a little bit harder, little bit further. And this is the way to improve our visualization skills. Now, so few of you are asking which books or am I getting the puzzles from? I try not to use books to take puzzles from, because if some student has seen that, then it will lose its instructional value. So I try to analyze games myself with engine help, and that way it will come up with many interesting ideas. So I try to um, get a collection of my own positions for training. I try to avoid positions from books, but there are multiple books available for solving. One is you can. So, like I said, I will post a video on book recommendations. So that way, all the major topics in chess, I'll just recommend few books on all the important topics. So that way, we don't have to go through this question again and again. But what I would say is, instead of the book or the position, that is not the key. That is not what you should be worried about. You should not be worried about where do I get such positions. No, that is not important. It is more important how you analyze the position in front of you. So you can just go to any website like chess.com, chess24, Lee Chess. There are so many, ChessBase, or you have ICC. So many websites are there. You can go to any of these websites and try to solve puzzles. But few things please keep in mind. Don't move the pieces. And this is one sure way to ensure the time you are going to spend solving the puzzle is not going to benefit you much. Okay, so please don't move pieces. Try to get the complete answer correctly. If it means I have to think maybe another 5 or 10 minutes more, then you should be ready for that. But if you try to do it in like 1 or 2 minutes and find a shortcut, but get the first move or maybe half answer is correct, the other half you are not even considered, or you miss some critical defensive resource for the opponent, then we won't gain much. And I have seen maybe more than hundreds of students who claim they are solving puzzles on a daily basis, but they don't, it doesn't improve their analytical skills. Now, this has happened a lot. And I simply believe because they are like trying to find an easy way out. Please don't do that. That's my request to all of you. Okay, is there no time? If there is no time for deep analysis in a game, should I go for material or position that might be made? So, Slinkon, that's a very important question. I would say when you are attacking, not just attacking. So, let me complete the attacking thing. When you are attacking your opponent's king and you feel good about your attacking potential, then avoid material gain. So material gain should be considered seriously only if it does not slow down the attack in the process. Okay, so when you attack, you gain material, usually it slows down the attack. And then the game will become more technical, whether you can convert your material into a win or not. But the attack will come to a stop. So instead of trying to give in to the temptation of gaining material when you are attacking, it is better to overcome the temptation. Say, okay, I can gain material here, but I am not interested. I want to go for mate. I want to keep my focus on the attack. So believe in your attack and continue with the attack. And because your opponent is scared of your attack, he is giving you some free material. So he is hoping you will stop attacking him. Don't give him that option. Okay, please continue with the attack and reject material. Same way I would say even in the case of positional advantages. Even when you have positional advantage, you have a strong pass pawn, good space advantage, good pawn structure, pair of bishops, whatever. Try to overcome this temptation to gain material. Instead, focus on keeping your advantages alive, positional advantages alive. That is a sure way to guarantee that you will be able to win the game. Because once the game goes technical, it will the character of the game will change completely, and your opponent will have more hope. So that's my suggestion. Lil Sneaky. Um, okay, maybe just we can play one game, but not rated, if that is fine with you. If you can challenge me on chess.com, my ID is Thalaiva, Thalaiva. Okay, let me just type it out. So this is my chess.com ID. So Mr. Attila, thank you very much. It was my honor to work with you.
Thank you very much.
So, some audiences, they're asking me to play some games with them. So if you wish, you can stay around, or you can take your leave. It's entirely up to you. Thank you very much.
I think I will stay. Maybe a little more.
Sure.
Without control.
Okay. Okay, so I don't really know how to add a friend. So can someone help me? Or can you send me a friend request? Neek page. So how do I add a friend? Satila, can you help? Like, how do I add a friend on chess.com?
Yeah, you need to go to the page of the player. Actually, you need to find the player.
So what it's just friends. Bottom left. Here. Okay. Thanks for that. Okay. So I've sent a friend request.
Okay, wonderful.
So you can challenge me. Okay, Trigashai, I've been a coach, let's say, for like 20 years. Actually, my first student was my future wife. So in 1998, I started coaching her. In 99, she won World Under-19 Championship. That was the first medal India got in World Youth Championships. So she was my first student, and then it took off from there. I was playing Railopas. Mr. Miyagi, you could say. Very ancient, you know.
So,
Ah,
wow.
so rook e1, d5, knight d4. I think some bishop c5 will come. Huh? It will go to some endgame. Two rooks, rook versus two pieces. but I don't work on my openings anymore. Like my last tournament was like 12 years ago. So, this looks very suspicious.
Oh,
Very suspicious. Okay, knight d4 is very tempting. So I think f5 was very weakening because now the king can never castle on the king side. So probably he wants to push d5 and keep the center kind of closed. Now many moves are tempting. So f3 is one tempting continuation. The point is if bishop c5, queen c5. But f3, I should consider queen h4 maybe. I can have g3. So f3 probably I'm winning a piece. But like I said, when we are attacking, should we try to win material or not? This is the trick. So I'm also seeing another interesting move. Let me check. I'm thinking a queen e5 check. If queen e7, queen f5. And then he has d5. Attacking my queen on f5. I'm just seeing if there is any forced win here. Okay. So let me go for material. Yeah, generally I would prefer sack mate than winning material. Probably here I just have to live with it. Yeah, I understand. He can listen to my future moves for sure. There is some interesting variation. Now I can play rook into e4. I can take rook e4. After d4, bishop f7 check. But unfortunately, he can take king f7, queen d4, and bishop c5 check. That leaves my queen hanging. I'm not trying to confuse him through commentary. I'm just thinking aloud. So I'll just focus on development. And now it's really tempting to sacrifice something. So can we have some fun? Why not?
well, this looks strong now.
So that is the point of knight c3. I felt like his pawns in the center were keeping his king very safe. So I thought, let's develop a piece at the same time, get rid of these pawns. Painful. So there's just too many ways to win. I want to see if I can checkmate. Okay, so Yeah, queen f7 and rook e7. I would win material, but like I said, I don't want material. I want mate. This is much better, no? The difference is now there is no h pawn. Now I can take on e7. So again, I can take on e7, right? But why keep this guy out of the game? Now I can win material, but I will go for mate as usual. A student. No, we did not do endgames today. We saw some. He is not. Let me include the queen in the attack. Then we will take the material. I missed that. Thank you very much. You are really cooperative. Yeah. You made me like show all my attacking skills.
Very nice game.
Yeah.
Inspirational.
So, yeah. So this is a 3 move. Is there any increment? No increment. Oh my god. So he knows my weakness. So when is your next stream, Mr. Attila, if you don't mind? So we have Uncle asking this question to you, Mr. Attila.
Actually, the plan is to have like today we will look how to adjust the things, but maybe not now, but maybe in a half an hour or 1 hour. Normally in the morning I do some tactics every day, or until now that was, but maybe you will suggest any different schedules, then I will be listening for that. But usually what I did like around this time, I did like every day an hour or 2 hours of tactics. That was actually my streaming and also my kind of training in the last like 2 or 3 weeks. And also I played like maybe like two blitz games maybe and analyzed those games also on the stream. Probably can make maybe things more efficient or but this was the schedule.
Mm. Yeah. Good night, Mr. Magadido. Good night. I have to take care of my clock. Not become too complacent. $8,000. Maybe like in one of the streams, I'll just play games, right? uh, Maybe today this could be the last game. I have some classes to take after this. Is playing blindfold just good for improvement? No need. You don't need to play blindfold. Don't make it too hard on yourself. You just have to. Um, okay, my pawn structure is getting broken. What? I think it's okay. So in one of the sessions, I'll just play like blitz games. Okay, so that then I will take more challenges. For today, I think with this game we will end the stream. I have some classes after this. One of the reasons. I really hate playing this kind of defensive moves. 23 seconds. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I think for today we will end with this Rampur. Okay, so thank you very much for the game. So I hope you had some fun. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Attila, and thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Okay. So take care. We will end the session today with this, and these videos will be posted in the other channel. So by in another few hours, I think I will post this video in the other channel. So if anyone wants to watch it again, you may please do so. Yeah. Take care, everyone. Goodbye.